I've been in the ergonomics world for going on 20 years now. I've definitely seen chair trends, things to do, things not to do, active sitting, the things that are coming down the pipeline today. But it reminds me of something that is foundational to our recommendations for chairs as ergonomics professionals through the years. And I don't think any of these recommendations will change no matter the chairs that are on the market. There's just so much merit for having a really good grasp on the fundamentals here. That's what we want to get into, to a really simple strategy that will help your clients get better chairs, you make better recommendations for chairs, and cements you as that go-to expert in ergonomics. And at the end of the day, that's what we want to do. Welcome to the Business of Ergonomics podcast. I'm your host, Darcy Jeremy. I'm a board-certified professional ergonomist with over 15 years of experience delivering ergonomics programs to employers of all different types. In this podcast, I share what other healthcare professionals are already doing and being with ergonomics assessments and how to land those clients that you dream of. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode right now. I want to take a quick minute to tell you about the two programs that make this podcast possible. First up is the Ergonomics Blueprint. If you're a healthcare professional, maybe you're an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, a kinesiologist, a chiropractor, or any other kind of clinician, and you've been curious about adding office ergonomics assessments to your practice, the Blueprint is your starting point. It walks you through the full assessment process, from how to structure your visit to how to write a report that actually gets results. And right now, there's a free live training where you can get a taste of exactly what this looks like in practice. You can register at ergonomicshelp.com/ergo-webinar. The link is in the show notes. The second program is Accelerate the Business of Ergonomics. If you're already trained and doing assessments and you want to scale your practice, find more clients, and stop figuring everything out alone, Accelerate is the membership that gives you the tools, the coaching, the community, and the resources to do that. Monthly live coaching calls, a curated equipment database, done-for-you content, point-and-click resources, and a community of practitioners who are building the same thing you are. You can learn more and join at ergonomicshelp.com/accelerate. Both links are in the show notes. Okay, on to today's episode, and it's a good one. Chairs. This is something that begs the question of merit, expertise, how much you are on the pulse of the latest, newest releases of the best companies, the best brands out there. It's one of the trickiest things, recommending a chair that fits the needs of your clients, that falls within their budget, and allows that client to enjoy their work. It's one of the things that you probably hear the most remorse about when you're called in to do an ergonomics assessment too. Maybe it's that someone bought a chair and it absolutely sucked from the beginning, or maybe there's a really popular chair out there. I certainly have a few chairs that I've walked across that seems to be the most popular, but for the life of me, I just can't understand why they're so popular. Maybe they got that popular chair and they just don't like it very much. And now they're forced to use it for the next 5 to 10 years because they spent $1,500 or $2,000 on said chair. So this is why it happens, okay? And it's not because they fell for the marketing. Well, actually, it is because they fell for the marketing. It's the way that the chair is recommended in the first place. It just doesn't work for the most of us. It's the way that the chair companies are selling these chairs. They're saying just come pick a chair on looks or features or functionality. They're not recommending the best thing, in my humble opinion, which clarifies what chair is actually fit for that person. And this is the one thing that I read back in the literature about 10 years ago. I've written blog posts about, I've seen in the field, and even before I read this piece of literature, I realized that this is hands down the number one thing that you should be looking to clarify with clients. And it goes beyond cost. It goes beyond everything that I mentioned. They need to be really educated on this. And it's about the amount of time. And the average person who looks at a chair either buys it from online, Amazon, straight from the manufacturer, or gosh knows where. Or maybe they're going to the showroom, the place where, well, it depends where you are in the world. It could be a big box store. It could be something else where they go and they sit in a chair for like maybe 30 seconds. If they're lucky, 2 minutes. Maybe they bounce a bit in it. They press this lever or that lever. Maybe they see if the chair can go up and down. And within that amount of time, they decide if the chair is comfortable or if it's not comfortable. This is a 2-minute impression that has nothing to do with whether or not the chair is going to help them in the 8 hours of actual work. And this is the fatal flaw I want to educate you on. And it's so that you can share this information with your clients. Because as we all know, the label ergonomics doesn't necessarily mean that's going to fit the person. An average person doesn't exist throughout body features. There's a wide spectrum of comfort too, and adjustability. And in today's market, I've noticed a lot of high-end chairs have very similar materials, and their features are really similar too. They can have very similar price tags, and all their marketing pictures look the same too. And this is where the air comes in, because most clients genuinely cannot tell them apart, nor do they have the skill set to be like, yo, this chair is so much better than the other. This is where we come in. The most common mistake that I see clients make when evaluating a chair is rushing the decision. They could be buying from like I mentioned, online, Amazon, or sitting in a showroom, choosing from a pool of chairs that the company already owns. I've seen it all. The thing is, no matter the circumstance, the one thing is true. They're just not spending enough time in the chair before they're deciding. And I don't mean like a little bit of time. It's nowhere near the right amount of time. And this is the crazy part too. Even if a client does spend more time sitting in the chair, they're often in postures that aren't even resembling what they would be using in a normal day-to-day, okay? They're like, maybe they're sitting perched, or maybe they're sitting with perfect posture. Maybe, you can name it. And part of this job for us as ergonomists is to slow them down and help them understand what they're actually evaluating. This is the most important step, and it cannot be overlooked. Okay, so without further ado, I'm jumping into this hack right now. And this is one, as I mentioned, I've been using for the past 10 years. Even before that, I was like keen to the idea that there's something with duration and the amount of time that someone sits in a chair. Have your client sit in each chair that they're considering, like the top 2 or 3 chairs. Have them sit in those chairs for at least 18 minutes per chair. Not 2 minutes, not 5 minutes, 18 minutes. And why 18 minutes? There's a study published in Applied Ergonomics in 2016. They found that 18 minutes is the minimum time needed to distinguish meaningful comfort differences between similar seat surfaces based on in-chair movement, also called fidgeting. Fidgeting is the key concept that I want you to take away, because most people think fidgeting is a sign that they're distracted or restless at work. In the context of chair comfort research, fidgeting is the objective measure of discomfort. When your body needs to redistribute pressure, it moves. You shift in your seat, you adjust your position, you change how you're sitting. That movement is your body's response to sustained pressure that isn't well distributed. And a chair that causes more in-chair movement, especially after the 15 to 18 minute mark, when your body has fully loaded the seat surface, is a chair that isn't distributing your weight well. And that matters more over an 8-hour day, right, than how that person feels when they're first sitting in that chair. So important. And I don't think most ergonomists are recommending this. We're going to get into some ways that you can use this idea and make better recommendations for your clients that really sets you apart from the competition in just a few minutes. So bonus points. And some vendors, if you have really good relationships with them, especially local vendors, and I certainly had this, that client may be able to arrange like a 2-week demo chair at their workstation. There's a lot of local chair vendors or salespeople that can do this for you, especially for those chairs that are like $1,000 to $1,500. If you have relationships with any suppliers, I highly recommend that you facilitate this because that definitely builds your know, like, and trust factor. And here's one more element that I think you should consider, and it's about ergonomics showrooms. If you have your own or you have a lending system that you can facilitate too, that is something that you want to look at. Or you can organize how that company should be having a few samples or a few demos of a chair on site if they are considering 3 options to allow that company to buy new chairs. Because we don't want them to waste $10,000 on chairs, $20,000 on chairs for chairs that don't even fit their staff. Before we go into the ergonomics showroom, I wanted to take a minute to just really go over the chair features that actually matter. And I'm bringing this to the podcast today because there is some major misinformation out there, whether it's armrests that are like free or like crazy other features that the marketing of chairs brings up to your feed on social media. There are some key features to chairs, and this is backed up by research. The number one, it's not just me, the ergonomic standards of the world also say this is number one. It's lumbar support, lower back support. It has to be adjustable whenever possible. Ideally, these should have adjustability up and down and in depth too. The height is important because the preferred lumbar support position varies significantly from person to person. And the thing with this is that it's not reliably predicted by the person's height or their gender. But research has found that it correlates with height, which means you genuinely cannot look at a chair or a client and know where their lumbar support should be. What you have to do here is you have to help them find it, okay? And that goes with trial and error in a chair. The adjustment instruction that I like to give clients is to have them sit fully back, find the natural inward curve of their lower back, and then adjust the lumbar to provide a steady support. It has to be comfortable. Not a push, not nothing. It should feel like the support is there and it's comfortable. People know this. They know how to feel this area and get something that actually works for them. So depth. Depth is something that's really important. And normally in some of the higher end chairs, you might have height, but you might need to pay extra for depth. And that's fine. That's something that I think is really important, especially if you have the budget. Okay. A lumbar with too much projection is more uncomfortable than no lumbar support at all. The way you adjust for this is that you start with the minimum amount of depth and add only until they find it comfortable or when there's consistent contact. It's their call. Another really important chair feature is called the synchro-tilt mechanism. This is the one I want to spend a moment on because it's genuinely important and most clients have no idea what it means. And depending on where you are in the world, it can mean something entirely different too, as I realized not too long ago. A synchro-tilt in England is basically the opposite of what a synchro-tilt is here. A synchro-tilt in North America means that the seat and the backrest tilt together like a rocking chair. With synchro-tilt, this backrest adjustability allows the user to recline in a way that usually feels biomechanically supported, and the thighs aren't lifting off the seat, and the body's not sliding forward either. The reason why this is important as someone who cares about people's comfort is that the research on intradiscal pressure going back to Nanjumsen's foundational work shows that a slight recline reduces lumbar disc pressure compared to strict upright sitting. Most people avoid reclining because it feels like they're slouching. A synchro-tilt mechanism allows for natural supported recline that actually reduces spinal load. This promotes dynamic movement throughout the day, which is exactly what we want for prolonged sitting. In a showroom, in assessment, wherever you are, try the recline. Does it move slowly? Does the body stay in contact with the seat? Does the backrest follow the movement naturally? If so, it means it's working comfortably. You probably have to educate your worker on how to make this adjustment, and you probably have to reduce the tension in the chair as well. So just pay special attention to that, because sometimes when you're adjusting the tension and it's really, really, really low, and you're changing the synchro-tilt into more of a free float mechanism when it's unlocked, that person could fly out of that chair. They could assume that there's going to be back tension, but they recline, and because you've reduced the tension, they fall out of the chair. So make really a good point that they understand what you're doing. They can do it themselves. The value of making these adjustments and how it feels. If they can confidently do it themselves, then you're winning as an ergonomist. Let's talk about another feature that I really love. Multi-tilt is probably my favorite feature in chairs. And word to the wise, a multi-tilt function is going to cost you. It's nothing that comes with most chairs. Most chairs have a synchro-tilt. It's the multi-tilt functionality. And the reason why I really like the multi-tilt is that it gives you more options. It allows you to angle and lock the backrest into many different back positions. So you could technically be sitting at like 115 degrees recline via multi-tilt. The synchro-tilt doesn't give you the same angle of adjustment. I mentioned tension control, the seat height, the seat depth. There needs to be that seat slider in chairs to allow that person to have that ideal position between the front waterfall edge of the chair and their popliteal area, because that area is just so sensitive for us. When armrests are optimally set up, armrests significantly reduce upper extremity strain, particularly for keyboards and mouse work. The height should allow the elbows to rest gently without the shoulders rising at all. Width adjustment, often called the D adjustment, lets armrests move inward and outward to accommodate different shoulder widths, which is so useful since we all have different sizes, body sizes. And like I said, these armrests have to be optimal for our clients. Now let's talk about the showroom strategy. I've used this before. I think it's really useful, at least if you have a mini one with some of your favorite keyboards and mice. This is a little bit more practical for larger organizations that you might be able to facilitate. Nonetheless, this is something that should be a tool in your toolkit, because all of this is where all of that clinical knowledge becomes a service that differentiates you from every other practitioner in your market. So you might be asking yourself, what is an ergonomic showroom? This is the simplest sense. It's just like a place where clients can come and try equipment. This could be a furniture dealer's floor. It could be a dedicated space at your office or at the client's workspace. This could be a carefully curated kit of equipment that you bring with you to assessments. You keep in your car. The option is there for clients who are interested in trying chairs. And if you can facilitate that through vendors that give you options and demos, that might be something that's very practical for you. The principle is the same in all of these different options. Your client gets to experience the equipment with your guidance before any money is spent in the first place. The first option is the external showroom visits. This is the most accessible version, and it's bringing your clients to an existing ergonomic furniture showroom or office supply dealer that carries a meaningful range of products. In most cities of any size, there's dealers who specialize in this. They carry chairs across a range of price points, sit-stand desks, monitor arms, keyboards, different types of mice, you name it. And your role in here, you're not the salesperson. You're just going to be the expert in the room, because we all know how confusing marketing is for these types of products. What do they need? This is where your expertise comes in. The thing that I think is warranted here is that it's a billable service. You're applying your expertise to one of the most significant purchasing decisions your client will make around their workstation. Build it into your assessment packages or offer it as a standalone add-on. Frame it as protection against a bad investment, you name it. The second option that I want to get into is the lending equipment during assessments. Another approach, the one that I think is quite useful, frankly, is building your own small kit of equipment and taking it with you when you do assessments. You can put this in a rolling briefcase. There's so many options how you can facilitate this. This is particularly powerful for items other than chairs, such as alternative keyboards, mice specifically, because these are quite confusing. And if you know anything about mice, it's that the angle of comfort is very unique for every person based on their specific anthropometrics and the risks that they're dealing with, the tasks that they're working with, and the ergonomics, the pain that they may have as well, their discomfort. You bring the options, the client tries each one in their actual setup, and they discover what works for their specific situation rather than guessing from a spec sheet. This makes your assessment process way more streamlined. It reduces the back and forth. Try this, let's see how it goes, return. And the returning element when they're trying new equipment is definitely something that can prevent them from ever ordering an equipment in the first place if they know that if it doesn't fit, they have to return it. And who has time for that? So it's a huge time savings. It demonstrates something really important that I think is really useful too, that you know your product recommendations well enough to bring them and that you're confident in your expertise. Just because ergonomics is simple doesn't mean that it's easy. And getting this across to employers that they simply can't do this themselves, they need to bring someone like you in to help them, is so useful. People talk. And if they know that you come in, you give them solutions, you help them with their discomfort, you know your stuff, they're going to tell their friends. And what does that mean for you? More ergonomics assessments. This is something that can really help you be that go-to ergonomics expert. The number 3 option that I have is the in-house showroom for larger clients, okay? This is something that I think is useful. It does have its place, and it's something that you can facilitate them to do. And I developed our own in-house showroom for larger clients. It cost maybe under $1,000 to get all the different types of equipment, and I went to town. We maintained a showroom space with a range of products, and we had chairs and keyboards and mice and monitor setups and footrests. It was $1,000 for the different types of items that were not chairs, and the chairs, that was another budget, but that we had a number of different chairs. Some were demos from vendors, some were just extras that we had around. But what ended up happening is that after an employee had an assessment and they had some options to consider, they would come in, they would sign out the equipment, and then 2 weeks they had to return it. I didn't have to follow up with anyone. They returned it and they borrowed what they needed. The result? This eliminated buyer's remorse. No more, we bought 50 of this chair and now half of the floor hates it. Employees had genuine confidence that their equipment because they tested it against their actual work context. Sometimes this decision happened immediately. Other times it took a little bit of time. Either way, this worked so well, and I highly recommend you do that. One point with that in-house program for demoing products is that for accommodations, for returning to work, for compensable workers' compensation insurance claims. This is another angle that a showroom is so useful and a larger employer must have to facilitate accommodations and effective, efficient return to work. Let's say whatever their injury is, the faster they can return to modified duties. And that means the faster you can reduce the duration of the claim, which is huge. And if you have worked in the insurance industry or been a part of getting people to return back to work with claims, you know how expensive these are. So the faster that you can return someone back to work via having the right equipment, again, with the ergonomic showroom, the better set up you are. And if you can educate your employer on this, that they're going to get much better results if they have this on site before a workplace incident happens, then again, you look like a hero. You're helping them save money and being as profitable as possible. Okay, we talked about a lot of things, and this is what I want you to carry out of today's episode. First, there's an 18-minute rule. There is that study that you can cite from 2016 that there is 18 minutes, and that's the minimum for a chair trial. And watch for in-chair movements like fidgeting as the objective measure here. If someone is fidgeting more at 15 minutes into trying the chair than at minute 2, then that chair is not distributing their weight well, and you got to look at a different chair. You're simply dodging a bullet here for your client. The second thing is to know your features. We talked about the lumbar adjustment, height and depth, the synchro-tilt for natural supported recline, multi-tilt for locking into different positions, tension control so the recline effort is appropriate for the individual, seat depth because most chairs are set too deep for most users, and armrests at the right height so the shoulders can stay down. The third thing that we talked about is like some version of the showroom, whether it's something that you can have as like a kit that can help add value to your assessments. It could be a relationship with a local dealer that allows people to demo a chair for like 2 weeks. It could be a chair lending program for a larger client. There's so many different options for a showroom strategy, but the principle is the same. The clients who try the equipment with your expertise, they make better decisions. You can get word of mouth talking about how awesome you are. Lastly, that ergo showroom where you accompany that person to demo different products, specifically chairs, it's not a field trip, okay? It's a service. So you can price this accordingly to however you want to price your services. If you want support with equipment knowledge, the equipment database inside Accelerate the Business of Ergonomics allows you to compare products side by side against the clinical picture you've documented. It's one of the fastest ways to move from assessment findings to a confident recommendation. All you have to do to get started with this program is go to ergonomicshelp.com/accelerate.